This year it's a huge beast, up to 30K and 4K cash. Yeah, it's quite huge, but we're really lucky to be in that position where we can do something like this to help grow our industry. That's just what we love doing. We love helping people, and like to see the reactions of what's happened over the years for, you know, Jelly Ocean in the first year, Penny Parker in the second, and Lazy Ghost just last year. Like seeing how far that goes to help them along their respective journeys. It's priceless, I guess. It's MasterCard. Like I'm one of three brothers, and I'd look up to my brothers, and they'd be going out to the pub or to gigs or to go and do things, going to festivals. And that was, I guess, the rite of passage as someone growing up in the mid-north coast in Coffs. It was like, oh, you're going to drive 6 hours for a festival. And that was the thing. And that was, I guess, the way that music was kind of ingrained in my upbringing. But I think maybe during the COVID period, and they didn't have that maybe that person to look up to, or like, oh yeah, like I'm going to go out and do this or go to the festival. So when it comes to experiencing live music for the first time, maybe it wasn't as exciting.
We've literally been like Cam was sick for a bit, and then I had this thing that wouldn't go for like 2 weeks. So the last few things that like podcasts we've recorded, there's been cough edits in every single one that we've had to pull out. We're usually pretty good with that stuff, but like sometimes you just can't avoid it.
Yeah, I had a interview podcast the other day, similar sort of thing, talking about this sort of stuff, and my voice, it's better now, but it's the same sort of thing. For like 2 weeks I just haven't been able to shake it properly, and as my voice got on through the interview, I just started to sound more like chunky. When I got to the end of it, I was like, yeah, so fucking what you're doing here is and I'm like, oh man, I'm starting to sound like him. So if that happens, sorry.
That is what it is.
Drink up. Yeah. No, it is happening now that I say it. If I think about it, it'll get stuck in. I had a meeting with Close Counters and a promoter in India last night. Same thing. As I kept going, I just started getting more Australian and more, this sort of talk. And I think they were probably just like, what the hell's going on with this guy?
This guy's just leaning more and more into his culture.
Yeah, they're just like, we just can't understand him anymore.
That's all right. Drink up as much as you need. It might be a fun journey for anyone listening to clean Rick at the start and, horsey Rick at the end.
Get the best of both worlds.
That's it.
Get the full evolution.
But we may as well kick off, Rick. Thank you so much for coming on and joining us. This is a bit kind of different. I guess it's less different for us now. We step outside of artists with some regularity. And in this case, we're speaking to you, Rick Bridgman. You're from Good Intent. And you're going to be talking today about the Greater Good Initiative. But having a look at Good Intent, I thought maybe it'd be good to start with Good Intent and even yourself too, because having a look at what you guys do, there is a lot under that umbrella. You're very much finger on the pulse of at least the Sydney scene, but I would definitely say far beyond that with some of the artists that you represent. But could you briefly just run us through who and what Good Intent is?
Yeah, sure. So straight away, in with the cough. Good Intent is myself, Rob, Carol and Nick Moran. So we're the three directors, originally founded by Rob 6 years ago. I think it's our 6th birthday, pretty much around this week. It's usually after Big Sound.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. All good things are born out of Big Sound. It was lined up to come off the back of that. But I joined in the middle of COVID, but I started primarily as a PR agency. So that was the original sort of idea. And then as it went on, Rob picked up some management clients in Bootleg Rascal and a couple of others. And then I was working at a different agency at the time, Under Control. So working on touring events, festivals, and management for Bag Raiders and Close Counters. Then when COVID hit, being a tour manager and like 50% of your time, there's not really much to do. So I was fortunate enough to still have my employment and doing what I could to try and make the best of the times. But then in my spare time, I'd come in for maybe a day a week and shuffle papers just to keep myself busy. And then from there, Rob just said, come come join the team full time and come on board as a director. And yeah, I guess it's all history. I don't know what the saying is. It's too late at night, 7 o'clock. It's what it is.
The rest is history. And I think it's good context for what we're going to speak about. Like, just for those listening who might not be aware, we have artists that listen, but we also just have music fans who listen. And that management, PR, promotion, representation side of music is huge. And I suppose it's probably the more, if you're not in the business one way or another, you're not aware of it. But we've learned it, obviously, doing this and dealing with artists and everybody that is, attached to artists and helps represent and helps promote artists. But what you guys do is really crucial to actually artists being seen and getting out there and actually also having their lives organised.
Thank you. It definitely is a big part. So yeah, in terms of, I guess, artist management, we represent Bootleg Rascal, Close Counters, and Fangs. Close Counters are my babies, a couple of years younger than me, and then Rob takes care of Bootleg and Fangs predominantly. So it's a cool kind of way, and I guess we've come from pretty extensive backgrounds in working across record labels, venue bookings, management, as well as touring agencies. And pretty much everything along the way. It's just kind of got to a point where, you've been doing it for a while and you see these sorts of how to build and develop an artist, especially in terms of like the PR and marketing sense. Rob's heavy background in PR from the Rare Finds days at Chug. That's actually where we met. I was at Chug with him at the same time, many, many years ago now. And then, the development side of it, learning that through my experience in management and record label land, you just kind of get to a point and it all just feeds into the big beast, and you get to have an understanding of what that journey looks like for an artist. First and foremost, it's all building blocks to get to that next level. And when you can look back from it holistically, when you're developing an artist, you can kind of guide everyone through that process. So it's not like, oh, we didn't get added to rotation on Triple J and we're not New Music Friday and we didn't get booked to put our own show on at Kudos. It's like, no, it's a journey. You've got to ease into it.
How much of your job when you're dealing with those artists, though, is actually, okay, we're going to push for Triple J, we're going to push for New Music Friday playlisting? Like, are they sort of like your, I guess, KPIs, or like this is what we want to achieve with this release on like 90% of your releases? Or is it a different strategy depending on the artist?
I'm really fortunate. I don't work on the PR side of the business. Nick handles that, and Sarah, amazing, and everything that they do. It's for them, that's their thing. They do it day to day for everything that we're working with. So like last couple of months, we've had everyone from Dope Lemon, Red Hook, Pacific Avenue. The Terrys just dropped something, I think today or tomorrow, depending when this airs. It is.
Well,
okay,
actually,
cool.
Yeah, I got the email at 1:45 this afternoon, actually, from Nick.
Nice. Oh, there you go.
Sitting in the inbox, so it's already, it's well and true.
It drives itself.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, they do it with every artist, but it is different for every act. And like those things that you mentioned, the rotation and playlisting, it's what everyone wants and loves, but it's about setting realistic expectations along that way. Because people say, yeah, that's the dream. But a lot of the time you're not going to get that dream result straight away, maybe not for a couple of releases, maybe not for a couple of years, depending on how you look at it. And it depends what your strategy is, because, well, if your strategy is those few things as you got like your main touch points of success, you're never going to be happy and you're going to have a very sad time in music. But I think it's finding what it is. And like a lot of the artists we talk to are like, try and build that community, try and build that scene around yourself, develop what your audience looks like. So when you get to that point that maybe you do have that groundswell and that momentum and some cool things happening, you're selling tickets to shows, you're selling merch, like you have an audience, it'll feed back into the results that you get. Like Lime Cordiale was a big one, working on that project. They weren't getting any Triple J play. I think on that first record, Permanent Vacation, we might have got maybe 2 hands full of spins. And you look at them now and they get that in about 2 hours on the J's. So they toured relentlessly. They've been around for yonks. and build that network up and down the East Coast and now all over the country. But it got to a point where I think that one was specifically Hottest 100, where they were just a dark horse, like come out of nowhere, and they just popped in because their fan base was so massive. It just was like, oh, it's time. And then everyone goes, oh yeah, they are great. And everyone catches on. But it's all about those building blocks from the start, just getting all the way up until, you know, you're ready for that extra support. But I mean, I could talk about this forever, but like, you know, talking to community radio stations and getting it in the hands of people who actually care and love music versus someone that might just have it on the background while they're at work or, you know, on the drive home. They're probably not that engaged, but, you know, your community stations like Love, FBI, 2SER, PBS, 3RRR, SYN, 4ZZZ, RTR, Edge. I'm not here to name a station, but we love those.
A little
guys,
bit offended.
Their audiences actually care.
We had.
Sorry?
I said a little bit offended. We had 6 years on community radio, but we were just a specialty show. It wasn't necessarily the whole station that was promoting Australian music, but that was sort of our little specialty for a couple of hours every week.
Look, I can understand why Coast FM might have slipped under the radar for networks playing Australian music, because that didn't necessarily make up the bulk of the programming there. We were an outlier.
We love you guys. It's all good.
Yeah, so you were talking about artist pathways a little earlier as well, and I think that sort of, I guess, leads into the greater good initiative that you guys are running. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. We're in our 4th year of Greater Good, which is really exciting. Started as an idea that was just based around, I guess, we always wanted to do something and give back to help artists on their journey, because, you know, we deal with expectations and conversations with artists every single day, and it's tough. Like, it's never been tougher than now, I'd argue, especially in my experience and from the feedback that we have. But we just wanted to do something that helped, and running a PR agency, having a photography, videography studio, and the capacity to help on the marketing side of things, we thought, okay, well, why don't we just package something together? So I called up my mate, Billy Zammit, one of the best photographers, creative directors in the country, in my opinion. Biased, I guess. But I was just like, hey, man, I want to do this thing. What do you reckon? Chuck in like a EPK development, some press shots, do some cool stuff on that. He was like, yeah, sure. Next, called my lawyer at Media Arts, accountants at White Sky, and started to form this package that turned into the greater good. Studios 301, Ron, who was there, is now working in management, which is really cool to see. Same sort of thing. I think that was the following year we added that in. But it's just kept on developing from there, where it's just mates and people that we love and look up to and respect, and people that we partner with on it. So now, yeah, it's us, it's the studio. Forbes Street Studios have come on this year, replacing Studios 301. Billy, Jungle Merchandise, doing some merchandise, so T-shirts, caps, and some stickers. Zenith Records, again, back on board, doing 157-inch vinyl. Purple Sneakers, Stephen Green, one of the best in the biz, hands down. Love everything he does. And they threw in a pack for $2K on Purple Sneakers. Filter did a year of beer. Placket, our mates there, Jamil and Sam, postering for a couple of cities. And then, yeah, Media Arts, White Sky, Ben Mitchell, our long-term designer friend. So this year it's a huge beast, up to 30K and 4K cash. Yeah, it's quite huge, but we're really lucky to be in that position where we can do something like this to help grow our industry. Especially
with the climate around that it currently is as well. Like, it's, I mean, financially difficult for everybody, but for an artist trying to get started, it's so much harder, it feels like now, for them to, I mean, obviously to afford studio time or to afford merchandise or any of the things that you touched on there that's part of this initiative, but also just to tour. Everything is just becoming so much more expensive. So for a greater good initiative to sort of be giving this sort of opportunity to musicians is really awesome. Is it harder from what you're doing, from your perspective, to get people on board to be like, okay, yes, I'm going to give up, 4K in cash or, 10K in value to studio time or, whatever the case is. Are you finding those conversations a little bit more difficult to get people on board, or it's just everyone's really supportive of the cause?
The cash grant that comes from our pocket. We'd love someone else to donate 4K to us, but that's us. That's just what we love doing. We love helping people, and like to see the reactions of what's happened over the years for, Jelly Ocean in the first year, Penny Parker in the second, and Lazy Ghost just last year. Like seeing how far that goes to help them along their respective journeys. It's priceless, I guess. It's MasterCard. But yeah, in terms of like getting partners on board, as I said, they're all people that are really within our close circles. They're people that we work with on a regular basis, people that, we can call at the drop of a hat and have those conversations. Be like, this was all just phone calls, just like, hey, this is something I'd like to do. And then from that we have conversations around marketing and how they can benefit from that, and whether it's questions in the survey or the application process, or everyone's just kind of been legends, and that's what it is, and that's who we like to work with. And then on we have a panel this year, an assessment panel, which is again getting people on board for that. We went far and wide to people that we love and respect, and we've got a massive panel this year of people. Joe Muller from Music New South Wales, Emmy Mack from Red Hook and Triple J host, Jane Slingo from EMC, Young Strangers and Vibe Lab, Glenn Dickey from Sounds Australia, Nick Kelly from HIT, Jess Wurst from Cult Artist, Dan Morgan from Astral People, and myself. But these are all people that we really love the work that they do, and we admire like everything that they've done across their careers. And just to have them on board just strengthens what we're doing, because it was something that we were all doing internally. And we did have some people across our team in the A&R side of things assessing the grants with us, but bringing other people in just helps with, I guess, finding those artists that we really want to champion. And there's a short list of 20 that we go out and we provide graded, I guess, support to, but there's always the one winner. But last year, I think Rob had about 150, 200 phone calls with artists. I probably had about 50 to 100. And Mish up in Brizzy, she was reaching out to people, just seeing how we can help. Because at the end of the day, if we can just give one small piece of advice, that's what we want to do. If we can give them 100 pieces of advice, set up a plan for them of how to strategize maybe their marketing or their touring, or how to prep a release properly, that's what we love doing.
There was a couple of Central Coast connections there, and forgive us for indulging in this because after all, we are a Central Coast based podcast, and like as much as we champion the Australian scene, we also champion the local scene as much as we can. Nick Kelly, you mentioned, who's Central Coast, yep, absolutely born and bred, does a fantastic job across the HIT network as well. He's something of like, I guess, an anomaly, if you can call it that, because like we did a workshop with him for Tubular Festival, which was organised here by Central Coast Music on the coast, and the fact that like he's almost, because you put, I guess, commercial radio in one box, and then I guess community radio, Triple J, etc., in different boxes, and what you assume a commercial radio host or what commercial radio is all about. Nick Kelly is about that, but he's also so supportive of Australian music, the local scene, and championing everything around that as well. So I think he's a fantastic person to have on board. And the band that you mentioned who won it last year, Lazy Ghost, they actually sort of took that financial support and recorded the EP with Jack Negro up here in Tuggerah as well.
Yeah. Nick Kelly, like, amazing addition to the pack in terms of the assessment panel. Like, we love everything he's done over the years, and he just has that unique voice and opinion on fostering a scene for Australian artists and pushing them through. Sunny Coast connection, love that. And then Jack recording the Lazy Ghost EP. The Lazy Ghost guys, it's all about that coasty connection here, but we do get a lot of applications from all over the country, and this year it's opened up to New Zealand as well, because we had a bunch of mates in New Zealand that were like, we want to apply but we can't, so we thought, why not just open it up and get everyone else on board, because we see applicants from Northern Territory, Queensland, I mean literally every state, but last year, one of the big standouts for us were Full Nelson, who just played big sound, and they're touring with Old Mervs and doing a New Zealand tour. And yeah, other WA acts asking like, well, what's the chances of us getting any visibility on our application when, you know, we're all the way over here? And I was like, just get it done, get it in, and tell us why you should be the number one choice. But yeah, everyone's welcome.
What's the process like? Like, obviously, you've assembled this panel to kind of go through everything, but like, where do you even begin when you're trying to sort through and sort out a short list and then an eventual winner? Obviously, there's a process in place, but I imagine you'd just be overwhelmed by music and good music as well. Yeah,
it's a challenge. It's a welcome challenge. Last year, I was flying to the UK and Amsterdam. And had the joy of listening to a lot of demos on the flight. It was a welcome distraction for a good couple of hours, and then I kind of just got cabin fever. Oh, that's a bad pun. I didn't even mean that.
I thought you did.
Yeah, we maybe. Got through a lot of it, but then had to take a little bit of a break. But the thing first and foremost is music, because, you know, if an artist, you look at all the questions throughout the application process, it does dive in pretty deep as to why they should be selected or shortlisted. But first and foremost is the music, because we can hear a song in a song. Like, the track might not be the best recording or what have you, but if we can listen to it and go, oh, okay, there's something here. Maybe they just need to point in the right direction, and maybe it's a matter of trying to find, you know, the right producer or the right person to work on it to get it to that level. But in terms of assessing it, it's about how they're going to use the package to their ability. Like, what's going to tick boxes for them, how they're going to actually achieve their goals and what they want to achieve. If it's Kudos Arena or Enmore Theatre first headline show, it's kind of like, okay, well, how do we work backwards from that? And we'll have conversations with them to try and guide them through what those steps looks like. Like, if you're a Sydney act, you know, breaking through all the venues up until you get to that point. Every other city along the way, but finding how to utilize what we're offering. So if you're asking for the 4K cash grant and then saying, oh, I want to get a photographer to come and shoot this photo shoot for us, it's like, we've got Billy. If you want merch, there's merch there with Jungle. And the thing about Lazy Ghost, they just had a really cool concept around what they want to do with their EP, their Serotonin EP, and they wanted to release Serotonin and have some messages about the New South Wales Police keeping serotonin captive, and they were going out to the cop shops and knocking on doors and being like, release serotonin. And it was a silly idea, but all the merchandise, the postering, and I guess where they were at in their career, it felt like they might have needed that little extra push, but it doesn't mean that it's only for artists that may have everything already set up. Like Penny Parker and Jelly were both, I guess, more entry-level stages, and this previous year it just felt like the right fit. But there were so many acts in that short list of 20 last year where it was a real coin flip to be like, well, who's best deserving of this and who might need that extra push. I can't wait for September 27 to dig into more.
Yeah, so that is the application deadline. How can people apply? Is it from the website, social media? How do people get in touch and submit their applications?
Yeah. If you go to Good Intent on Instagram, Good Intent Music, or goodintent.com.au/greater-good, or just search Good Intent. Search Good Intent, Greater Good, and if you don't find it, that's the first challenge. If you can't find it from there,
then that's your problem.
You're not getting any further. Yeah. But it's really cruisy. You can download the questions beforehand, or if you want to submit a silly one and put like Rick and the Bridgman as your band name and like do something dumb. I've opened myself up to it now, but if it happens, I'll be happy. But you can see all the questions that you have to answer. It's nothing crazy. It's just like, how would you use the funding? Why is it the right time? Like, what's your achievement so far? How have you worked towards those goals? And then some questions from our partners. But yeah, if it takes you half an hour to do, if you really want to dig into it, but don't go crazy. Like, don't spend days on it. As long as it's all dot points as well, just to make it easy. It's like, you don't have to tell a story and narrative you can if you want. Some of them were really interesting last year in that respect, and very, trying to think of the right word to describe it, very interesting. And they were appreciated, especially on that 24-hour flight. It was like, cool, I don't need a book. I can just tuck into this.
I'm interested in the project and in relation to, I suppose, what we have seen, which is definitely improving. And we're not to just bash with a bat all the time the governments of various states, territories, and federal, but there's been a definite lack of, or perceived lack of, and a shortfall in opportunities and funding that's coming from places like government to artists and providing that opportunity. And also it comes in the wake of obviously the devastation that COVID brought to the industry. Prior to that, particularly in Sydney, the lockout laws, and it all translated into a lack of opportunity, a lack of exposure. From the outset, was an initiative like this seen as an answer to that, more like the industry itself just going, okay, well, you're not going to do it, so we will? Or was that not really part of the thought process when it came about?
I think back to that time, we had a different government in New South Wales and a different government at the federal level. I don't vote Liberal, let's just say that much. I'm a Labor voter, and they're in power, and there's always better things and better ways things could work. But I mean, it was pretty fucked. It's like, that's just being. I don't want to get too political because it's almost 8:00 at night. But yeah, it was not the best of situations. And I mean, the thing that's a positive from that, we put this out there, not as necessarily no one else is going to do it, but we just wanted to do something to be a part of like that story that there is some good out there. I think the changes that are coming through at a state and federal level are much needed, and they're like, I'm seeing the benefits of that for artists across the industry, whether it's people that we work with directly, whether it's our management roster, or just everyone across the industry as a whole. Like Music Australia and everything they're doing, the recent funding that they've been putting out has been incredible. Music New South Wales, Sound New South Wales coming through to help Sound New South Wales specifically on, making things easy, everything from venues and infrastructure and capacity building for the sector. There's some really, really cool stuff happening out there. Like reading the Creative Communities policy, like 75 pages of policy. I never thought I'd be excited by something like that, but that and the Revive policy hand in hand, I was like, something good is coming, and we're just really at the start of that. There's definitely good stuff, and there's a lot of opportunities out there. It's tougher to complete those grants, but there's a big pool of money that's out there to actually help develop artists where we had sweet nothing before because of those guys.
So obviously you're in the industry, you're working day to day, you are sort of dealing with, I guess, governments in some aspects. How much of a difference has it made actually having these bodies dedicated to the industry as opposed to being lumped in with transport and roads and, different bills, as it were, previously? Like, how much of a difference, in your opinion, has that actually made, and have you experienced that firsthand?
Yeah, I mean, transport, tourism, sports, and something else, I think, is what the wider state grouping was. It's definitely good to have a body that actually represents the industry as a whole and is listening to the concerns of what people are going through in terms of those sorts of organisations internal in government. Great organisations out there like the AAM, I'm a member of. We talk with other people in like the ALMBC, so the Live Music Business Council. In terms of how it affects us day to day, it's not something that's necessarily noticeable, like, oh, everything's fine. But they are working behind the scenes to do good and actually get stuff done. Emily Collins at the head of Sound New South Wales and Joe at Music New South Wales, like, you've got people in these places that have this great experience and they're really achieving some amazing things. It's like, if you just go check out their socials, if you're not following them, go follow them, join their mailing list and figure out what they're doing. Like the programs that Music New South Wales are putting together are class leading, and Sound New South Wales, they're finding all sorts of ways to assist us. I get their emails every other time they send it. I mean, every time they send it. So I do see that value, but yeah, it's just a really exciting time. It is doom and gloom for some respects, but I think the way that they're shaping it is like it's a positive time. And yeah, if we all just stick together and try and get through it, I think it'll be okay.
Yeah, it does feel like foundations are being built, and even in the form of, like, we've reported on some of the research now coming out that is being conducted by government, where they're, like, the State of the Scene report, for example, where they're going in and actually providing this base of data for us to build off. And we were like, oh, it'd be great if we had known what it was like previously, but of course we couldn't because the bodies conducting the research didn't exist. So it does feel like we are moving in the right direction and building these really strong foundations that also can't be unpicked as easily, I think, as some previous policies were. It's hard to just dismantle an entire body, though, I mean, don't count on it not being tried in the future. But if we could speak more about the scene itself, like you guys, as we kind of mentioned at the top, you would have a finger on the pulse of the Sydney scene and beyond. Are there anything in particular that you're noticing at the moment from someone in your position about music, whether it's the scene more broadly, what artists are doing individually, or just how things are progressing?
Yeah, I mean, well, we booked the Lansdowne Hotel. If you're talking about ticket sales and people going out, generally ticket sales are down from previous years, but there's still some standouts that are really kicking goals, like in the next couple of weeks. Full Moon Flower Band. They're coming up on the weekend. That's going to be a massive one. And we've just had so many good shows recently that it's coming back, but ticket sales are down. But I think it's just about how we adapt and change, I guess, the concept of what going out is, because it's so hard to go out. If like when I was at uni, it was you go out Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, maybe Monday. Like working in hospital, it was kind of what I did. But like people are changing their habits, so it's offering something that's different and unique. That's like that point of difference. So it just can't be a gig. Like if you're going to do something, make it cool, make it interesting, have some sort of different concept around it to make things exciting. And that's the thing that we're seeing that's working versus just a traditional band playing show. Because people will go, I've seen it before, but that's been really cool. I've seen venues in the UK really partnering up together to help with shows and tours that they're presenting. Close Counters, they're on the middle of a UK and Europe tour at the moment, and working with the Truman Brewery team. They do Brick Lane Jazz Festival and also book a venue called 91 Living Room attached to the brewery. But we were talking about the promotion plans around that, and they're like, oh yeah, we'll reach out to another venue here and do an EDM swap and like some social shares and interactive swaps and that sort of thing. Like that, for me, I guess we're kind of siloed a little bit in venue land here because you're focusing on just selling tickets for your event or your venue. But that was a really cool thing to see, that they were banding together and having that support where they could provide it. Obviously, there's limitations, I guess, if they've got a show they really need to push. But if something can be done like that, that was a really cool thing to see.
What are some of the strategies that you might be implementing to try and make the show different? In a sense, because I guess we've seen so many videos from the Sphere in Las Vegas when U2 performed there, and it was this massive, all-encompassing sphere and digital light show and all these things happening with the screens, and that elevates the experience of going to a concert. Obviously that's a lot of money and investment, and we probably can't really do that over here at the moment, but
just knock one up at the Lansdowne. Can't do that hard.
I'm sure city planning in Sydney would allow it. But what sort of strategies are you thinking you can implement to try and enhance that experience and I guess make it, part of the culture again, that we're going to go out and go see a live show because they're now doing X, Y, Z as opposed to just seeing a band on a stage perform?
Yeah, I mean, the Sphere was stolen from Close Counters in Melbourne at the Nightcat. No, it's obviously a great thing, but we did it with Close Counters. They had their record Solar Coaster 2 come out the start of last year. So we did a party called For the Soul Only, and it was a no phones zone, so everyone had their cameras strapped up, couldn't have access to it. You could still pay pass and all that because you can't live without. I mean, I don't even know what my wallet is. Don't know where that is. Anyway, it's
For our
gone.
listeners, Rick just looked around the room, just like
A bit panicked.
Added context. That was very
Yeah, I have no idea where that is. Anyway, it's not important, so I don't need it. But you do need it for when you're going out. You need your phone. So anyway, the concept was just having something that was for people to actually just to engage with the music, because as a record called Solar Coaster 2, the follow-up to Solar Coaster, the OG, it was something that we wanted people to actually enjoy the music. And the band, Alan and Finn, they're like some of the most incredible musicians in the country. They do some really cool stuff, and they hate, I guess, the best part, social media and phones. And when you're at a gig and everyone's got their phones out, it just loses that fun and that touch of like actual engagement and authenticity. So we said, okay, let's make a no phone party. And we've been toying with the idea of a cube for a while, and we just kept on having phone calls about, and like, how can we just make this experience about the album more about the music and get people to care and get into it. So yeah, we built this massive cube with material all around the outside, and we had live map projections across that with sort of themes, and because the artwork it's yellow-ish and has these different collages. So we're live projection mapping. Reese Newling, one of the best in the biz. He was based out of the Nightcat. Still think he is, but he was live projection mapping all this stuff onto the cube. So if you're dancing around the cube in the middle of the Nightcat, you've just got like all this different stuff happening at once. So you're not just, I mean, you couldn't see the guys DJ unless you're at the right angle and the light come through. They might not even play the show. It could have been a claptone thing. But it was just one of those experiences that we're like, okay, we'll have one videographer come in and shoot a specific couple of moments, and that's it. So, and that, like, looking back on it, it's on their Insta and TikTok, I'm sure. Like, looking back, people are just like in the moment. There's not a phone in sight. There's no one like doing it. It's just music, just about the music. So that was something that I loved, and like that's something I think we'll probably do again for their tour that's coming next year, for something that I can't talk about, but just doing something that's like that. Like, it's not much, but like just have a whack. Like, that cost a couple of $100, and the boys built they built that cube. They couldn't build the sphere, but they built that, and it was just something that was exciting and different.
It's interesting that you say that, because we kind of had wondered and pondered, especially in regards to festivals. Like, we know there's smaller boutique events like Meredith, Pitch as well. Some are like across the spectrum, those smaller boutique ones that offer more than just a stage, and a bar, were still seem to be going very, very well, while others are kind of falling off. And it's interesting that that same kind of principle seems to be applying in Gigland as well, where people are perhaps more discerning, or maybe it's just because they're more conscious of where their dollar's going, that they need to know that they're getting this full experience out of the purchase and not just simply seeing a band. Is that kind of what you're thinking is going on in the eye and mind of the average punter?
Yeah, I definitely think that. And Meredith is like my favourite festival. I haven't been since I moved to Sydney about 6-7 years ago, and I can't wait to get back. It's just the curation of it is just amazing. The lighting, the rides, the camping, it all feeds into it. It's just like the best weekend ever. And the lineup this year is huge. But yeah, I think people just want that point of difference, because I think we were starved for gigs for so long. And then when it come back, it was like, oh yeah, that's the same thing. But you also have people that have never really experienced it. You have, I think, generations of younger people that maybe when they were coming through and growing up, like I'm one of 3 brothers, and I'd look up to my brothers, and they'd be going out to the pub or to gigs or to go and do things, going to festivals. And that was, I guess, the rite of passage as someone growing up in the mid-north coast in Coffs. It was like, oh, you're going to drive 6 hours for a festival. And that was the thing. And that was, I guess, the way that music was kind of ingrained in my upbringing. But I think maybe during the COVID period, and I mean, having lockout laws as well sucked, and fuck my bed. Yeah, there's all sorts of things that play into it. But it's just like, they didn't have that maybe that person to look up to, or like, oh yeah, like I'm going to go out and do this or go to the festival. So when it comes to experiencing live music for the first time, maybe it wasn't as exciting. But now people are just trying to find what's new and different, because if it's a choice between having dinner or going to a couple of gigs, it might be like, okay, well, I'll save up for something big and important, or I'll it's what do you choose? Like, support 10 of your mates' bands or pay rent? It's tough.
It's interesting. I think it'll be interesting how we view this time, in 10 years' time, when things have kind of stabilized and we've reached whatever that new normal is now, because everything's in this weird state of flux and change at the moment. And perhaps we'll view this as an enlightenment of gig culture or festival culture, where things really took a step forward into something that's resembling more what you're describing there.
Yeah, I'm hoping it's a positive time. Like, there's a lot of festivals that are closing, a lot of venues that are hurting, and like some of the biggest dogs like just falling over or calling it quits. But yeah, I'm hopeful that it's something that we look back on in 10 years' time. We go, oh yeah, that was funny. But I think it's just everything else that's happening around. If people are becoming more creative, and there is more support from the government and businesses as well, that are music businesses trying to put these things together, and venues trying to set these grassroots shows up for artists to come through that journey, so they have a place to perform when they get from the smaller cap venues right up into the theaters and stadiums. Like, they need that more than ever right now. So I'm hopeful. I'm hoping it comes through and we all win.
Yeah, hopefully you're right. Hopefully once we're past all of this, we can, we're out the tunnel and we can look back when all the festivals who have cancelled or pulled the pin have now come back, all the venues are good. We can look back on this period like we currently do with the toilet paper debacle during COVID and just go, man, what a weird, scary time that was, but we're past that now and it's all good. So hopefully we can do that with this current moment in music. But on, I guess, innovation in that sort of festival scene and the live gig scene, like I've heard described just in general things in life, like what is like new and exciting now will become just standard in 3 to 5 years time, right? Think about, I guess a self-service checkout, for example. When they first came out, you're like, oh, how cool. Like, I don't need to talk to anyone. And now it's like, I'm not even looking at the person at the register. I'm just going to self-serve and scanning what I need for dinner and then heading out of there, sort of thing. But that's now the standard, right? So if the Sphere type LED shows and light shows and screens become a standard experience, going back to our current version of music, where we go, okay, well, I'm not going out to see that. You need to continue innovating in that space, which I think comes back to our current attention span, because gigs, I don't think have really changed all that much over time. But now it feels like just as part of our culture and society, we need to keep innovating and changing to keep people's attention span and to make people think, well, this is new and exciting. I'll spend my money and do it.
Yeah, I think it's, it comes down to education as well, and just availability and awareness of these sorts of things. Like Always Live in Victoria just kicked off with a massive lineup. Some opinions on both sides of how that all kind of shapes up. I won't really get into it, but it is a massive thing for them, and it's bringing back that awareness of trying to get people to go to gigs and get them excited about stuff. That's where it has to come from, because you can't just. There's people that I know of. I don't really know them too well, but don't care about music. It's not for them. That's, I'm sure there's a percentage of people that just don't care, but there's such a massive potential for people to actually get out there and get excited about gigs. And it comes down to, I think, education and awareness, and education in the school system as well, for music, like learning about music and learning how to play instruments, and that excitement that you learn there. Like, I started playing, I think, piano when I was maybe 5, and then eventually learned guitar later. And I was always excited by music, but I didn't have the opportunities to study it at school, because they said you can do PE or go to a different school to do music. And stupidly, I stayed at the same school and did PE, and I think we went fishing for like 4 terms. So I learned a lot. No, the important thing that the schools can learn from this, or are learning, there's a really great company called Amplify, and they have a music education system that's in so many schools now. Natalie and Ricky from Amplify, they put an amazing program together that's in schools across the country, and it's about teaching kids music first and foremost, but making it exciting and interesting for the kids that are doing it. It's not like, okay, get your flute out and we're going to play Three Blind Mice. It's actual like stuff that's relevant and cool. I mean, I find it cool, and I'm sure they're doing really well. So I can't fault them or say anything bad about it. Like, but that's the thing, like getting the kids excited about music from that age where they're developing that interest, instead of going, okay, you can be a doctor and a PE teacher, and you can also be a musician, or you can work in the business side of the industry, and this is the routes. Like, I think having kids learning about that more as they come through develops that culture as a whole of what music is and what it means in its significance to culture. So yeah, they're doing really cool stuff, and that's just going to be a thing that we see over time develop. As the experiences themselves, I think you touched on there of what the standard is. I think nothing's really changed too much, but it's those little moments where you get to experience something different. A couple of weeks ago, I saw Menashe, artist out of Sydney here, Western Sydney, managed by some of the Torrent crew. They did a party in this abandoned building in the city. The Torrent crew do crazy parties, always have, and yeah, really cool stuff. But that was like the most stripped back thing you could possibly do, and he was just playing on a keyboard synthesizer, had a celloist in as well, and a drummer, and it was this massive space, really well lit, and like some TVs like set up either side, and they were like flashing, and some really cool imagery on there. But then they had the band room in the next side. But that was a really cool party. Jerome Blaze, sorry Jerome, he did a party that was just fully stripped back and like just a like jazzy soul-esque performance. I missed it, but I saw videos of it and I was really upset. Just doing something that's a little bit different, trying to find a more unique space. All those things are great, but it just pushes the boundaries of what music is and can be. And maybe that some people will just go, yeah, we just want to play a rock and roll show, and they do that, and that's great. Like, I've seen some amazing shows that are just straight format, and you're like, cool, it's no shit, it's just straight to it. But I think it's just good to get that creativity flowing as an industry, so it's not just stock standard. I mean, that's what we do at Good Intent. We always want to do something that's different with our clients across the roster. It's just like, okay, how can we make this something that's more exciting and more fun for people to enjoy? Because if you're doing the same stuff, people just go, meh.
On that standards and innovation thing, like that's all dependent on the artist as well, and your genre, and I guess what kind of vibe your live show is anyway. Like, it could be something as, and I think I've told this story in the podcast before. I've definitely told Eamon. So the Wombats, I think I've seen 3 times now. We'll make it number 4 when they come to rolling sets on the Sunny Coast in December. But the first time I saw them live, I was actually a little bit
coast, up Mount Wise.
Yeah. Doing awesome stuff. So I was actually a little bit disappointed the first time I saw them live, because I just felt like they were just playing their record live. There wasn't any innovations or any, interactions in the crowd. There wasn't anything different about the songs. The second and third time that I've seen them, they changed up little parts here or extended, chorus breaks or whatever the case was. But even those little things add to the live experience and make it worthwhile too. Like, if you feel like I'm paying to see a show, and that is a completely different experience to listening to the album on Spotify, or a different experience to what Melbourne would have had, the night prior, like, it feels like that is a worthwhile investment as well. And those little things can be the little innovations to spark it as well. You don't need to go play the Sphere at Las Vegas to be innovative, but you can do little things like that.
Tailoring the set list to the audience as well. Like you can see the data around who's listening to what, who prefers tracks over tracks. Like a lot of people do look at that sort of stuff, but it does make it exciting, especially when you're looking at bigger acts. Like I didn't go to Taylor Swift, couldn't tell you what happened at the concert, but I think on some of the bigger scale shows, you're kind of forced into a bit of a routine where everything's pretty much laid out, and you could go to a world tour and see the same thing.
And with social media too, I know.
Yeah.
So my wife, that's a fiance, it's old habit. Wife, been married for 4 months now. My wife saw Taylor Swift, that was back in February, but she was watching TikToks from when she was in America and sort of spoiled parts of the set, and I hope she does that when she comes to Sydney. And so it's a completely different experience on that scale, like you said.
Yeah, and just the little things that you can do, like just do something different, and the most minor of things, especially for bigger acts that are coming from international. You want to have that journey and something being different. Like I think one of the best shows that I've seen in years was Idols at Enmore Theatre, maybe last year. I don't know. They all kind of melt into 1 year, but they played like so many tracks and quick snaps between different tunes as well and different records. And, I think that was off the Crawler record, and just like some really deep emotive tracks. And then you're just thrown back 5-10 years into some old stuff, and you're just like, okay, cool, like mixing it up. And I believe that some of their sets were quite different in that respect as well. So if you are going and you're a super fan to every single show or 2 shows, you can fly to Melbourne, see a different show with, like, I've got mates down there, so I would have loved to have gone and done that if I could have. But going and experiencing something again, you're going to get a different experience, because it's just like, it makes it fun. And then because you see everything on socials, it's just like, oh, cool, I've seen this whole thing, or I've seen this moment. It kind of gets a bit tiring if you're just seeing the same stuff. But there's some good bands doing some cool stuff.
It's also a great promotion for the no phones thing as well. Stop filming shit, watch the show, and stop putting it online too. But I mean, it all does kind of circle back, because Rick, we can hear and see your passion, and also the kind of innovative mind and what you're exposed to, what you're seeing. That all does flow back down into the artists that you work with in one capacity or another. And it's why the Greater Good Initiative is such a valuable prize, if we can land back on there. So artists out there who are listening, this is a really, really good opportunity to not only just get a management representation advice, but get it from really, really good places. So Rick, thank you so much. And for those artists who are interested, applications are open now. They're open till 27th of September. 30 grand total prize value, and even those shortlisted do receive advice and guidance from the Good Intent crew, the Greater Good Initiative. Check it out on their website. And the shortlist is announced October 14. Winner will be revealed in 2025. So Rick, thank you so much for coming on and sharing that with us. And we can't wait to see what innovation, what good ideas you channel into the next crop of winners and shortlisters.
Yeah, thanks, Eamon, and thanks, Cameron. It's been fun. Haven't lost my voice yet, so that's cool. But no, I appreciate you taking the time. What was that?
You're not Aussie enough sounding by the end of it.
No, mate, no, not yet. But we'll get there.
Well, I think the breaks in recording and dropping out and everything might have aided. You had a bit more of a break, or maybe we just waffle on too much as well. That's a possibility.
I shorted the system. I was changing some settings over here, kicking you out, so I could just have a little breather and a little water.
It was Rick, not my 10-year-old laptop that's just still chugging along fine. Gozzy Liv says, I don't want to buy a new one yet. But yeah, for those listening, there's been 2 massive laptop freezers edited out of this podcast. So you're enjoying the clean version. But yeah, Rick, thank you so much. It's been fascinating to chat, and we really can't wait to see who ends up on that short list and taking out the Greater Good Initiative for 2024.
Thank you.
Well, I'll tell you what, that was probably one of my favorite episodes. He says not knowing what episode this is going to be attached to at the end for the outro, but I'm sure it was a cracker regardless. And if you want more from us, head to www.homebrewed.au. All of our work is done on Darkingjung Land here on the Central Coast. We pay our respects to Indigenous past, present and emerging. We'll see you in the next one.